Hello and welcome to Ludlow Elim Church Online. Great to have you with us, wherever and whenever you're watching this from. My name is Dane. If you don't know me, I'm the pastor here at Ludlow. If you want to know any information, our website address and our email address are in the description below. So please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. Today's recording, or Sunday's recording, is of a series that we're just starting about questions that Jesus asked. And I've kicked it off with the question of, who do you say I am? And I hope that gets you thinking, hopes that gets you kind of looking at the question, looking at why it's so valuable, looking at these questions as well. So I hope that's going to really bless you and speak to you. And I'll hand over to myself. All right. Lord, as we come to your word, let's hear your voice. Let's have ears that are open to all that you're saying to us. And receive from you something of your spirit talking to our spirit, deep and calling to deep. Have your way. Amen. There's lots of questions in life, isn't there? Lots of questions. Some as little as, where did I put my keys? Would you ask that one? Or, did I remember to put the bins out? That's a good one. Or, why is it so early? The night owls amongst us will know that one quite well. Some other questions. Questions can get us to think though, can't they? If a tree falls in a forest and no one is there, does it still make a sound? Do I get?
Yes, it still makes a sound.
I'll round up the bow of that. We had a good discussion because that was. Did anybody else do that in school? That was something that our teacher, when they do philosophy and stuff like that, they teaching that, they use that as a one. At what time did time begin? Ooh. 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. How do you expect the unexpected? Because by definition, it's unexpected. Why does slim chance and fat chance mean the same thing? Where do all those missing socks go? And a biblical one for you, last one. Did Adam and Eve have a belly button? Oh. Those are stupid examples. But we're going to be thinking over the next few weeks about questions. Because questions help us in the process of figuring things out. And that's why it's a good way of a good thing to ask questions. Never be afraid of asking questions. Jesus never was. I think he asked over about 300 odd questions. And he never shied away from being asked a question. He might answer it with a question, but he never shied away from being asked questions either. And actually, in fact, asking the right question at the right time is, in business and in leadership and everything like that, it's a sought after thing. If you can ask the right questions, it leads to some good stuff for people. But back in Jesus' day, they kind of knew this already in the Jewish culture. In rabbinical literature, there's this dynamic between a rabbi and his pupil or his disciple. They called them a talmidim, whatever that is. It's people between the age of 15 and 30. So these are the people that have gone through the whole educational system. And they're the smart ones, because a rabbi has said, "Come, follow me." So whenever you see Jesus do that to the disciples, he's actually saying, "You are worth this. I want you to follow me. I think you can do what I do." So it's a bigger thing when he says, "Come, follow me," than what we kind of think in our normal 20th century brain. But these rabbis, when they said to these disciples, "Come, follow me," in exchanges afterwards, this disciple couldn't come to the rabbi unless it was in the form of a question. Even if they'd be reading scripture, or they come to kind of this, "Oh, I've got this amazing thought, can we discuss this, Rabbi?" They couldn't come to him unless they did it in a question. Because the rabbi wouldn't kind of spend time of day. He wanted his disciple to think through the subject enough to be able to ask a question about it. So, questions in and of themselves. I don't know about you, I ask questions because I don't know the answer to stuff. Yeah? Generally, that's why you ask a question. But when Jesus was asking questions, he knew the answer. So why ask so many questions? You ever thought about that? He knew the answer. Why ask so many questions? Yeah, we've kind of gone over a little bit about it. It's a good teaching mechanism. But Jesus taught in parables that are amazing, and he had other teaching techniques to communicate truth. So why use questions as much as he did? When you're asked by someone how you're doing, or they remember something about you and ask questions, does that build a relationship between you? Questions have a way of building relationship. Questions worked through have a way of us owning the answers. I think some of the stuff the lessons that I learn the best is something I've worked through for myself. And I think questions allows the teacher to allow the other person to work through it for themselves rather than just being told the answer. And it actually creates conversation, doesn't it? Because if you don't get it, you can have this kind of dialogue. So questions are really, really helpful. And I think that's why Jesus used a lot of questions in his teaching. And that's why we're going to go over some questions that Jesus asked. And today, we're going to go over probably one of the bigger ones that we're going to start off with. Who do you say I am? Who do you say I am? It's in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the synoptic gospels, if you want a big word. Basically, it means they all look similar, so they're called the synoptic gospels. And in all of them, Jesus is shown to ask this question to his disciples. So I'm going to read two different versions, one in Mark and then one in Matthew. So Mark goes like this. Mark 8, verses 27 to 30. Jesus and his disciples went to the village around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. So, in that passage, I read actually Mark and Luke first, and I was kind of thinking, isn't there a little bit more to that conversation? Because I always remember a little bit more. And it's found. Only Matthew records this bit. Luke and Mark is what I've just said. But this is only in Matthew. So let's read Matthew 16, verses 13 to 20. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you? Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. So, that little bit extra that I was kind of thinking of when I started to read it. So what I want to do as we look at this question, or questions, I should say, is we'll look at what all the Gospels say, and then we'll look a little bit about just what Matthew says. So, what all the Gospels say is these two questions. Who do others say I am? And who do you say I am? So let's look at that first question. Who do others say I am? So is Jesus here doing the ancient equivalent of seeing how many likes he's got on his Instagram? Is he feeling like he needs to kind of gauge where people are kind of responding to him so he can make sure his image is on brand, as they say? Of course not. So why is he asking this question? Why is he asking about others? Who do others say I am? I think he was trying to get his disciples to start looking beyond themselves. Because he wanted them to be faithful witnesses to the world. That's what he was calling them to. That's what he was going to do, he was training them up to be. And to be a faithful witness, you need to be able to talk to people rather than talk at people. They need to understand what you're saying. So, if you're ever wondering what probably most non-Christians think about Jesus, it's normally either he's a good man, a teacher, a prophet, or this one gets more prevalent now, is that he didn't even really exist. That's the one that people are trying to push. Now, you could kind of answer all those questions when you're talking to people, but is that really what they want to hear? Or is it their questions that they want to kind of discuss? So, I don't know, have you ever had those conversations where you've been talked at, and you can't get a word in edgeways? You probably have kind of drifted off with your mind about 20 minutes ago, because they're carrying on, because they're desperate to communicate something, but they've lost you. Whatever the nugget of truth that they were trying to communicate is gone because they wouldn't stop talking. It wasn't a conversation, it was just being talked at. To be a witness, we need to communicate, not talk at people. And most of the time, isn't it funny that they couldn't communicate the truth in just 5 minutes? Have you ever noticed that when people are talking at you, they could have just said it probably in a sentence? But we could go over all those different things that people might think about Jesus, but really we should say, who do others say he is to the person? Because it's maybe not so in the face as who do you think he is? We can lead into that question, but maybe who do others say he is? And then we can lead into, but who do you think he is? So, for us as disciples, I think we need to do our research, we need to kind of think about what others think and maybe have a response to that. But let's always be open. Let's be open to the questions, let's be open to the conversations and ask, what do you think? What do others think? Let's be curious. Are you curious what others think? Let's raise our curiosity. So, Jesus asks, what do others say, or who do others say I am? Then he goes on to say, but who do you think I am? So this has gone from the abstract or the otherness into very personal. And I think this is a question that we all kind of have to kind of work through. Every single one of us in this room has worked through this question. And I don't know if you've ever been asked the question, did God ever really, or did Jesus ever really say he was God? You ever been asked that question? Though some others have, and I have as well. If you ever do, in these kind of conversations, if you talk with people, you can point them to the phrase, Jesus often called himself the Son of Man, doesn't he? You can find that quite all over the Gospels. He calls himself the Son of Man. And this is actually Jesus saying that he is God. It's a claim that he is God, because if he said he was the Son of God, at the time it would have been understood as something like saying, I'm in relationship with God, like Adam, or like Abraham, or like David. That would be the Jewish kind of concept, if he said he was the Son of God. Or that he's just a human in right relationship with God. But the title, Son of Man, was something very, very different. And it was argued and talked about, and they were kind of trying to work out who is the Son of Man. And it's from Daniel 7, verses 13 to 14. And it says this, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and all peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away. And his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. That sounds like Jesus, doesn't it? So the Son of Man. And if they kind of then go, no, he wasn't saying that about the Son of Man, point them to the court bit, where Jesus is up before the Sanhedrin, just before he gets crucified, because he actually pretty much quotes Daniel fully there. You will see the Son of Man on the clouds, coming on the clouds. So if you, Mark 26, or Mark 14, Matthew 26, if you want to reference. So, Jesus claimed to be God. The disciples, when he asked that question, who do you say I am? They realized that he was God. You are the Messiah. And most of us in this room have responded to that, saying that you are the Messiah. For the recording, if you haven't, or anybody in the room, if you haven't responded to that, all you need to do is say, you are Lord. You confess with your mouth, believe in your heart that he is Lord and Saviour, then you are truly saved. Romans 10. But we come to that question, you are the Messiah. We have to answer like Peter. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So why am I saying that God might be keeping asking us this question? Because surely you answer it once. Yeah? Because is it like God was saying, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? Do you ever get annoyed when someone does that to you? That's kind of like, do you really think so? Yes, I gave you my answer 5 minutes ago. Stop asking me the question. because he's God, there is so much more to him being the Son of God than we realise. There's so much more that we can dig into in that answer. So let's go over how he answered Peter to see why we keep getting asked that question, who do you say I am? So we keep getting asked that question because it actually brings revelation to us. Who do you say I am? Brings revelation. Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." Peter, when he realised, when he answered, he was starting to tap into something of the supernatural. He was starting to hear God's voice. As we look at and as we look to the question, who do you say I am? When we say you are the Messiah, we go into seeing God not just as Messiah, but King, friend, Lion of the tribe of Judah, Prince of Peace, Prince, Priest in the order of Melchizedek, Redeemer, Emmanuel. Who do you say I am? Brings us revelation after revelation as we dig into it. The short answer, I love how God does this. He makes it simple enough for a child, but big enough for the biggest brain on earth. The simple answer is he is the Messiah, the Son of God. But we can dig so much deeper. He calls us to keep asking, who do you say I am? And as we go through that process, as we see more of who he is, we find a rock to build our life upon. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. Now, our Catholic friends might actually say that this shows that Peter was the first of the popes and everything like that. But as a good Protestant, we would maybe disagree with that, and we would say, no, this is the truth that Jesus is the Messiah, that he is the Son of God. That's the rock on which the church is built. That declaration of faith. So as we start to see him, as we start to declare who he is in our lives, we start to make that foundation, that rock, we build on the rock of Christ, that revelation of who he is. And lastly, as we discover who he is, as we build on that rock, we are given keys of the kingdom. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. We know him as Messiah. We recognise who he is, and we dig into more of that. And as we do that, we find the rock of our salvation. We understand the firm, solid ground that we stand upon, whatever hits us. And as we do that, the kingdom gets released in our lives. Kingdom breaks out. God invades earth. That's why he taught us the prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. That's the key of the kingdom. That is what he's wanting to unleash in our lives. Bound up anything that is not of God and loose everything that he's got for us. So, who do you say Jesus is?
Okay, I hope that has blessed you, has kind of spoken to you, and would love to hear from you. Again, email address and website are on the description below, so please contact us. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to meet us physically, we meet at 10:30 on a Sunday morning. Love to see you there. But other than that, God bless, guys. Catch you again, and I'll leave you with the notices.